Kia ora friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Gina, and in today's video we're going to be gluing the walls together, or at least that's the intention by the end of this video. But in order to do that, we've got a few more details to actually get finished. As you can see here, I've got some flooring to finish up. There's a couple of sunrooms that need to also be completed for the walls, as well as some furniture that I want to create also. So let's get some of these details finished and these walls glued together. So for the flooring, I'm going to use this bath towel, and I am going to use it for a carpet in the hallway. And the reason why I'm using this is because I know that the scale is probably going to be a little bit out, but for this scale I really want it to be like a shag pile carpet. And what I was specifically looking for is the colour, and this was the closest sort of brown that I could find, like a nice warm brown to fit with the 70s style. So I've got the entranceway that I want to do, and I'm just gluing that into place and around the stairwell. And then I've also got one for the living room. Now I think I would have shown this in a previous video, but I'm just going to make sure that I've glued that into place. The other flooring that I want to create is for the attic, and I'm going to do some timber flooring, and I'm just using a bit of cardboard. This is from a cereal box, so depending on where you are, depending on what you call this, but it's basically just cardboard or chipboard, I think it's also called as well. So I'm just going to glue that into place. I'm just using a very little bit of wood glue, and I'm just going to glue over the cables, which isn't really ideal. However, this is going to be the attic, and I will be covering it with a whole lot of different bits and pieces, probably some boxes and other things, so you're not really going to see the bump in the floor with the cable running underneath it. And then I'm just going to use a bit of brown paint, and I've just watered this down ever so slightly just to help it sort of spread across. The cardboard is really porous, and it's just, you know, soaking up all the paint. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to go over it with a dry brush of a really light grey, just to kind of give it a little bit more of an aged effect. For the sunroom, these are actually three separate panels. I was about to say two separate panels, three separate panels. And all I've done is I've added a little bit of paper just on the inside of them, just so that they stick together all in one. It just makes it a lot easier when I glue these back into the project. And all I'm doing is painting the walls with the same brown paint that I used for the flooring, because I really want these to kind of disappear into the background. For the window frames, I'm just using a piece of mat board. I'll just cut that middle part out altogether. Now I'm just going to separate them through, and then I'm just going to paint these up with a mixture of that same brown paint as the wall with a little bit of black, just to kind of add a little bit of depth and definition between the wall and the window frames. For the actual windows themselves, I'm just using a bit of plastic. This is some sheets of plastic that I've had, but actually any packaging material would also work. It's exactly the same thickness, and I'm just going to glue a little bit around the outside of the frame and then glue the panels into place. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to peel off the protective layer, and then with those painted window frames, I'm going to glue those into place. But before I glue the windows into place, I'm just going to take this Sharpie in a brown colour, and I'm going to highlight where the window mullions are, because otherwise it's just completely flat on the inside. And this just adds a little bit of detail without adding too much to the actual glass itself, or the plastic actually. And now I can glue those window frames into place. And then one last touch for the sunroom to be complete is just some skirting board. So one of the things I did while I was waiting for paint to dry is I had a look at this. It's a measuring cup for some protein powder or something like that. And I thought, I wonder how I could make a television. And so I just doodled and just drew up this little sketch of a TV. I thought I might just potter away and make the TV just to see if that will come together. So the first off, I was just thought I'll cut out the shape of the television screen and just see if that plastic sits in quite nicely behind it, and it does. And then I'm just going to continue on cutting down some shapes, and now I can start to layer up the 2 layers of mat board and to where the screen will go. So this is starting to come together, and then I thought, how could I give it a little bit more depth and a little bit more definition if I put some mat board around the outside and just overlapped the very edge to kind of give it a little bit more detail around the TV. And then I'll just also cut a back piece as well. So for the sides of the TV, I wanted to make sure that the back and the front had something to rest on, so that when I glued the whole thing together, then it gave me basically some gluing points, but actually more importantly some stopping points, because I didn't want to glue the front into place with it being stepped back from the outside of the TV. And as you can see here, that little inset just allows the front of the TV to stop and doesn't push back any further. So once I'm happy with that, I can start gluing these into place, and I've just done those down the side. I haven't worried about doing those over the top or the bottom. So this is how it's starting to look, with a little bit more detail around the edges, and it's really starting to give a little bit more detail. So for the legs, I'm just going to use some toothpicks, and these are far too long, which is understandable. So I'm just going to cut these down to length. I did cut the very tip off, and I'm cutting these down to approximately about 2 centimeters long. And then to actually fit them into the base of the TV, I'm actually going to take my drill with a drill bit approximately the right size, and I can just push those in. I'm just going to glue those in on the inside. So I'm just going to paint the inside black, painting the outside of the TV, and I really want to give that sort of a wood effect. But first of all, I just want to mask off that very inside edge, because I really want to paint that a slightly different colour. So once I'm happy with the painting, and I'm just going to go back over it with another coat of brown, and I really want to make this a little bit more streaky in order to give it that slight faux wood effect, which works really well with the white mat board and underneath. So now I can remove that masking tape, and this will give me a nice clean edge. And for this piece around the screen of the TV, I really want to paint it that real avocado green, which will match with the green in the wallpaper and the green in the flooring, to sort of try and bring it all together. So even though in the 70s it was pattern on pattern and it was busy on busy, there was still some sense of bringing the whole scheme together. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is just kind of adding a few little touches, a few little details that'll help bring the whole thing together. And having avocado green on your television set is probably something that you would only get in the 70s. For the dials on the TV, I'm just using some beads of different colours and different shapes. So there's a reasonably large silver bead at the top, 3 little black beads, and then some smaller silver beads at the bottom, just on a piece of cardstock that I've just painted silver. Then I just printed off this little picture of the test screen on the TV, and to put the TV screen into place, I'm just going to set this in the back, and then just using some hot glue, I'm just going to glue that in. And then for the picture, I'm just going to glue that using some hot glue again. I wasn't too sure if this was going to make the picture go black, but it didn't, so that's good. And then I'm going to paint around the glue in black. For the lights, all I took was a string of 20 lights, and I cut 10 of them off, and I just looped them backwards and forwards on themselves so that it got a nice little spread of the lights across the back. And then once I was happy with that, I just glued the back into place. Moving on to finishing off the fireplace, I knew that there was a few more details that I wanted to add with it. So I'm just taking a hair roller. I've just cut a piece down off a hair roller, and then I'm just going to use the grate on the inside. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to cut away this fluffy bit on the outside. Once I'm happy with the shape of the grill, I'm just going to cover it with a bit of black paint and Mod Podge. And then I had all of these little white stones, and what I'm doing here is just picking out the smallest ones out of the bunch. But the white stones aren't really going to work in this project, so I'm actually going to paint them black, just with a mix of black acrylic paint, so a bit of Mod Podge as well, just to try and glue it all together and to secure it into place. What I want to do is add a little bit of tile grout and dirt mix. I'm going to drop a bit of isopropyl alcohol onto the surface, and then just give it a little spritz of glue, which is basically water and PVA, and then I can put the stones or the coal sitting on the top, and then I can put the grill into place, and then once all that dries, it'll set up really nicely. So now we can get on to the actual purpose of this project, which was gluing the walls together. So this is kind of a feel the fear and glue it anyway type of thing. It is something that I've been wanting to do for ages, but really nervous about gluing things permanently into position, especially when things are really tight to get into. But I'm really happy we got here, and here we are gluing the walls together. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and feel free to subscribe to the channel. Have an awesome week, everybody, and I'll see you next time.